for the sake of the YouTube edited video that will be up in probably like a month and a half.
2 years later.
I am not going away from my shop. Welcome everyone. Whew, so we are in the part of the book that is stressful AF, which may end up being the whole rest of the book. Disclaimer. I don't know. Some of y'all know better than I would. You know better than I. So, the last chapter, chapter 11, was called The Inheritance. Oh yeah, because of the thing that I'm about to explain. So first we get a flashback to when Kyoshi was little, and she remembers being scared of being blamed for some fireworks destruction that she wasn't even there. Flashback, and then she wakes back up. We're back in present day. She wakes back up from the avatar state because she's the avatar officially. And the mountain is like destroyed, kind of. Everything's like low-key destroyed by her. And then she sees in the distance the earth start to shift, and she's like, oh, Genju's coming back. He probably burrowed under the earth for safety. He's coming back up. And so she just like yeets out of there, hops on Pung Pung. Pung Pung can tell that Kelsang is dead. Sorry, big spoilers if anyone is on here today and you haven't been here the past couple weeks or you haven't read the book, we're in a part of the book where it's like you're getting big spoiled. So Pung Pung can tell that Kelsang is dead, and Pung Pung is sad, but Pung Pung, she takes Kyoshi home, and Kyoshi's like, not home, Yokoya. Yokoya isn't home anymore. So and then she has another flashback of her as a kid, and Kelsang saw how malnourished she was and how he gave some villagers money to take care of her, and they didn't really do it. And then they went, like all the other kids were flying kites, and Kelsang tied himself to some string and let Kyoshi pretend that he was a kite, and he took his staff and like flew in the air like a kite. Like, Kelsang! King Kelsang. So she gets back to the mansion. Rangi's waiting there, and she's like, where have you been? And Kyoshi tells her everything. And Rangi's like, what? No, that's not true. No, what? And Kyoshi's like, I have to go. And she's like, great, now Rangi hates me. And so she packs stuff up in her room, gets a trunk, takes a big old axe and like opens up the padlock on her trunk, and inside her trunk are the fans, this little thing, and some makeup. And then she's about to go get Pung Pung to fly away, and Rangi's in the stables, and she's like, you forgot food, didn't you? And so Rangi and Kyoshi are gonna go escape, fly away together. Doot. Boop. Chapter 12, did I say 12? This is why I have to do the YouTube video. Chapter 12, I think, The Decision. The sunrise after the storm had no idea what Kyoshi had been through. Sorry, that is a great first line. I am losing my mind. I'm going to read that one more time. The sunrise after the storm had no idea what Kyoshi had been through. It shined its warm hues of orange through the clouds like a loud boor of a friend insisting that everything would work out. The waves below flowed neatly under the steady breeze, making it appear that they were flying over the scaled skin of a giant fish. What a paragraph. Fighting the weather throughout the night had blasted them, body and mind. Pung Pung's flight path was starting to ramble, but they were no longer in danger from wind and lightning. It was a good time as any to address the other life-shattering piece of news. Rangi rubbed at the dark shadows under her eyes. You're the Avatar, she said. She spread her fingers and stared at the back of her hands, checking whether she was intoxicated or dreaming. After all of this, it's you. You really had no idea until now? Kyoshi shook her head. I don't know what went wrong with the search when we were younger, but from what Kelsang told me, it sounded like a complete mess. No one knew. Not even It was difficult to spit out his name. Not even Genju. I've never heard of this happening before, Rangi said. She closed and opened her fists to make sure they were still working. At least not in Fire Nation history. When the fire sages reveal the avatar, it's a done deal. Kyoshi fought the urge to roll her eyes. Of course, in the Fire Nation, the caravans arrived on time, and the identity of the most important person in the world was never in doubt. And then there's the festival, Rangi said, lost in thought. According to tradition, there's a celebration bigger than Twin Sunday. We eat special foods like spiral-shaped noodles. School is canceled. Do you know how rare it is for school to be canceled in the Fire Nation? Rangi, what does that have to do with anything? The firebender stretched her elbows behind her back, her mind made up. My point is that there are set ways this is supposed to pan out, she said. If you're the avatar, you need the trappings of the avatar. We need to find masters who know what they're doing to recognize your legitimacy and give you the right guidance. Rangi vaulted over the saddle edge onto Pung Pung's neck and took up the reins. The bison dipped lower over the shimmering water. Up ahead, a small crag jutted from the surface, a finger of rock poking through the ocean sheet. It was too steep for ships to use as a dock, but there were a few level surfaces near the top, covered in soft green moss. Why am I picturing that cliff from Avatar? That cliff doesn't exist yet because she hasn't made the cliff yet. Sorry. I'm going to drop you off here where you can camp safely, Rangi said. There's protocol in the event the compound came under attack and I had to flee with the Avatar. Those bags were pre-packed. There's everything you need for a week in them. Once I return to the village and figure the situation out, I'll bring someone who can help. No! She couldn't go to another master, especially not a well-known one. Any earthbender in a position to aid her was more likely than not to be a part of Genju's web. Looking back on her time at the house, she'd seen the evidence of his reach every day. The gifts, the ceremonious visits, and the dictated letters were simply tokens that marked the flow of power and control in the Earth Kingdom. And for as long as she'd known, it all filtered up to Genju. Kyoshi scrambled over to Rangi and yanked the reins out of her hands. Pung Pung swerved to the side and roared in complaint. Stop that, Rangi shouted. Rangi, please, you'd only be sending me right back into his hands. Kyoshi nearly bit through her tongue as she remembered the horror Genju unleashed from deep within the mountain, and his complete callousness while he did so. Rangi couldn't have known the extent of her fear. Kyoshi was certain that man hadn't shown that side of himself to anyone but her and you. Rangi fought with her for the reins. Let go! You're being ridiculous! Rangi, as your avatar, I command you! The firebender recoiled, like she'd been struck by a whip. The order wasn't one of Yoon's jokes. It was an exploitation of Rangi's oath to protect and obey the Avatar. An attack on her honor. Rangi blew a long strand of black hair out of her face. It didn't go very far, the end of it sticking to her mouth. I suppose I have to get used to you saying that. There was an agonizing distance in her voice, and Kyoshi despised it. She didn't want a professional bodyguard obeying her orders. She wanted her, Rangi, who scolded her without hesitation and never backed down. They spent a long time in silence, listening to the breeze pick up. Yoon is gone, Rangi said. He's really gone. Her voice seemed thin, drawn out by the passing wind, like the notes of a flute. She sounded hollow inside. Kyoshi had no comfort to give her. Both of their lives had centered around duty. Kyoshi's for the sake of survival, Rangi's for pride and glory. But Yoon had managed to pierce both their shells. Their friend had been stolen, and as far as Kyoshi was concerned, there was a single path laid out before her, and she could take in response, lit by the clean, bright fires of hatred. I'm not ready to confront Genju, Kyoshi said. I'm not nearly strong enough yet. I have to find bending masters who can teach me to fight and who aren't in his pocket. In fact, it was more than that. She'd need teachers who were completely unknown to Genju. If he suspected she was after training, he'd look for her in schools around the Four Nations. And she'd have to conceal she was the Avatar. That news would spread so fast it would act as a beacon for Genju, allowing him to close in on her before she was prepared. She didn't have a good idea how she'd obtain instruction in all 4 elements without giving the game up, but she'd make it work somehow. The idea sounded ludicrous in her head. It was ludicrous, and yet Kyoshi knew she would walk off this cliff without hesitation. She would stick both hands into a dragon's mouth if it meant the slightest chance she could pay back Genju what she owed him. Rangi dragged her hand down her face. Fine, bending masters. Where do you want to look first? You're talking like you have a plan, so let's hear it. You're not coming with me, Kyoshi said. I have to do this alone. The firebender gave her a look of such utter contempt for that notion that it could have been grounds for an Agni Kai. Kyoshi was afraid this might happen. Rangi's powerful faith, her need to fulfill her duty, would spiral around with no spot to land on but her. She had to stay strong. She'd lost so much already, and she wasn't going to risk her one remaining connection to this world on a fool's quest. You're not coming with me, Kyoshi repeated. As your avatar, I command you to stay behind. Rangi, I'm serious. She wanted to sound angry, but the effect was ruined by the overwhelming tide of relief she felt at Rangi's rejection of her demand. A strictly professional servant of the Avatar couldn't disobey her, but a companion might. I have no idea how long this journey will take, Kyoshi said, and there are secrets about me that I haven't told you. Oh no, Kyoshi's keeping a secret from me, Rangi moaned an octave lower than normal. I think I'll be okay with whatever your little revelation is, given the last thing you sprung on me was only the most important piece of information on the planet. The crag passed them by, a silent onlooker that wanted no part of the conversation. The last marker of reason in an ocean of uncertainty. From this point onward, there was nothing but trouble ahead. But at least Kyoshi had her friend back. We need to rest, or we'll lose effectiveness, Rangi declared, nestling herself under the corner of a tarp that had come loose. If you've got a destination in mind, then I'm taking the first sleep shift. You owe me that much. Rangi. Oh, just kidding. Oh, no, I read it right, sorry. Rangi. Kyoshi tried one last time to growl and threat. Instead, the name came out like a dedication of thanks to the spirits for this fiery blessing of a girl. It was futile trying to mask how Kyoshi felt toward her. Where you go, I go. The firebender rolled to her side and yawned. Besides, I'm actually yawning. Besides, there's only one bison. Rocks for brains. We can't split up now. Despite how tired they were, Rangi only dozed fitfully, shivering though it was no longer cold. Watching her from a distance, Kyoshi had an answer regarding the little snips of breath she'd listened to for so long in their shared tent on the iceberg. It was how Rangi cried in her sleep. Whoa! Every so often she would burrow her face into her shoulders and wipe her tears. I'm emo. With their eyes on each other, it was easy to be brave. Maybe that's the only way we get through this, Kyoshi thought. Just never look away. She stared at the water until the sun's reflection... Stop, I keep looking ahead. She stared at the water until the sun's reflection became too much, and then reached for her single bag of belongings. Digging around, she found the clay turtle. It was made of earth. It was tiny. She could use it for practice. Small, she thought, as she cradled it with both hands. Precise. Silent. Small. She curled her lips in concentration. It was like crooking the tip of her pinky while wiggling her opposite ear. She needed a whole body effort to keep her focus sufficiently narrow. There was another reason why she didn't want to seek instruction from a famous bending master with a sterling reputation and wisdom to spare. Such a teacher would never let her kill Genju in cold blood. Her hunger to learn all 4 elements had nothing to do with becoming a fully realized avatar. Fire, air, and water were simply more weapons she could bring to bear on a single target. And she had to bring her earthbending up to speed, too. Small. Precise. The turtle floated upward, trembling in the air. It wasn't steady the way bent earth should be, more of a wobbling top on its last few spins. But she was bending it. The smallest piece of earth. Oh no! Sorry, I read ahead. Sorry. I'm sorry. The smallest piece of earth she'd ever managed to control. A minor victory. This was only the beginning of her path. She would need much more practice to see Genju broken in pieces before her feet, to steal his world away from him the way he had stolen hers, to make him suffer as much as possible before she ended his miserable, worthless life. There was a sharp crack. The turtle fractured along innumerable fault lines. The smallest parts, the blunt little tail and squat legs, crumbled first. The head fell off and bounced over the edge of the saddle. She tried to close her grip around the rest of it and caught only dust. The powdered clay slipped between her fingers and was taken by the breeze. Her only keepsake of Kelsang flew away on the wind. And that's the end of the chapter. Whoa, the next chapter is from Genju's point of view. Whoa there. Wow. This book is sad, y'all. All right, quick summary. So basically, really, the whole chapter is just Kyoshi and Rangi flying on Pung Pung. But first, Rangi is like, I'm going to take you to this specific spot. Like, we have protocol. If stuff goes down at the mansion, I'm supposed to take the avatar here. And, these bags were pre-packed. And Kyoshi's like, no, you don't understand. We can't do anything that Genju would know about. Like, we have to hide. We have to run and hide. And Rangi's like, it's fine. And Kyoshi tries to steer Pung Pung the other way. And Pung Pung's like, what are y'all doing? And Rangi's like, stop, it's fine. And Kyoshi literally pulls the avatar card. She says, Rangi, as your avatar, I command you. And Rangi's like, girl, you can't pull that on. Oh, don't pull that on me. You know I'm going to do it. Kind of rude, but it's important, I guess. Just a little back and forth of, you can't come with me. I have to do this on my own. And then, no, I'm coming with you. I'm ride or die. Where you go, I go. I love how she calls her rocks for brains. We learn more about how Rangi cries in her sleep. I love that information. I'm not sad about that at all. And then Kyoshi is like, I gotta practice earthbending small things. And so she tries to earthbend the clay turtle and it works at first. But then she gets mad. And the turtle cracks and crumbles to dust and blows away on the wind. And now I'm so sad about it. It's spelled P-E-N-G. It's pronounced Pung Pung. I understand if you would pronounce it Pang Pang, which is valid because they spelled Mang from the fortune teller episode. They spelled that M-E-N-G. If you're using Mandarin pronunciation, like Pinyin Mandarin pronunciation, it is pronounced Pung Pung. And that's how they've decided to do it. The spelling in the Avatar universe is very inconsistent. Sometimes it follows Pinyin, which is Mandarin pronunciation. Sometimes the words that are based in Chinese words. And then the words that are based in Japanese words follow that pronunciation. There are a couple words that I think are based on Korean spelling. But sometimes the words that are even based in Mandarin words have kind of weird pronunciations. Like May is spelled M-A-I. But if you were going to, in Pinyin, that should be pronounced Mai. Like, if you were going to write it in Pinyin, it should be M-E-I to be pronounced May. And so, anyways, love these linguistics lessons. Great. I'm glad you love them, because I'm going to keep doing them, whether or not you guys like them. Sorry. She said, language nerd. She has to learn earth, then fire, then air, then water. She has to find an earth master. Yeah, because she hasn't even learned earth. We're so used to them, like, knowing their own element. Like, at least, thank God Aang was a master airbender. God, can you imagine? Who the heck would he learn that from? I wonder if that's ever happened where a descendant of an avatar became the next avatar. That would be kind of wild. Do you like Kyoshi better than Korra? I love them both. I think, yeah, I like Kyoshi better than Korra, but I think I relate to her more than I relate to Korra. But I love them both. Toph versus Katara, both at Prime. Toph might win, but I don't know. They're both so good. They fought each other at Prime. Like, they were holding back. But in the Runaway, I feel like they both were very... But if Prime, if you mean, like, you know, they're both 20 or something, or 22 or 25 or something. I don't know. Interesting. Who would I be or who would I want to be? I'd want to be Korra so I could end up with a song. Who would I be? I would just be some, like, random person in the Fire Nation. But the Fire Nation, hopefully more Korra Fire Nation. Who do you think would win, Korra or Aang? Both in their prime, I think Korra would win. Even in Aang's prime, Korra's done. Korra's strong, you guys. She's very, very strong. It's by @ToughChocks, TOUGHCHOCS. She's on TikTok. She drew that and made a TikTok about it and tagged me, and I was like, this is amazing. And then when I made the YouTube, I was like, may I use this as my profile picture? And she was like, sure. And then she sent it to me, and yeah. Who would win, Roku or Kyoshi? Kyoshi. I mean, I'm not a professional writer. Anything I tell you, I'm just gonna be kind of trying to think of stuff that my dad has told me because my dad's a writer. I'll say this thing. This isn't a general piece of advice. This is a very specific piece of advice. The difference between shock and surprise in the way that my dad defines it. And the way he defines it is, surprise is when like a plot twist happens and it informs the character, and if you go back and rewatch it, it makes sense that that's where that was going, and you learn more about the character. Whereas shock, something happens and you almost it contradicts everything, and it doesn't make sense, and it's kind of just like there to be a plot twist. I'm explaining this very poorly, but basically what I'm saying is, if you're putting in plot twists and things like that, make it make sense, make it traceable, because I feel like nowadays we're so caught up in like, we gotta outsmart the viewer, and it's like, no, you gotta tell the story. There's nothing wrong with your viewers being able to predict your story. There's nothing wrong with that. Tropes exist for a reason. It's because humans have we've been telling the same stories for tens of thousands of years around campfires. Just now we're making them into movies. and you know, and still be creative and stuff, but like, don't be scared of being predictable. Is that bad advice? That might have been bad advice. I don't know. I have friends who like Pokemon. I'm Pokemon adjacent. Guys, Tiny Nerdling says, I used to dread Sunday nights because I worked so early Mondays, but you've made Sunday night my favorite. Thank you, Tiny Nerdling. You all have made Sunday late afternoon my favorite. Like, yeah, I feel, because I work and I have school on Mondays, but tomorrow I don't have school, but I still have to work. And so this has just been such a nice little moment in my week with all of y'all. So thank you all for being here, always. Who has the better relationship, Sokka and Suki or Angatar? Sokka and Suki, hands down, easy money. Yes, it is cool that Roku fought a volcano and died. Aang fought a volcano and won. But to be fair, Aang was further away and he did have a whole village help him. Like, let's be real. But that is an interesting parallel. What do you think about not seeing Suki in Legend of Korra? I am livid. And Jenny Kwan, voice of Suki, what did she say? She was saying that they had her audition for Legend of Korra. It's like, audition? I'm Suki. Like, to play someone else? It's like, audition? But she didn't say it like that. Like, she was humble about it. She wasn't like stuck up about it. Don't get me wrong, she's fantastic. We love her. We stand her. What do you think the Avatar zodiac are? That's so interesting. You know, I really don't know much about astrology in terms of like what personalities it makes people like. Like, I know about I'm a Cancer and blah, 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 blah. Like, but I'm not one of those people where it's like, I think he's a Gemini. He's probably a Gemini. I don't know what that means. Like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be because I'm a Cancer. Like, I check CoStar every once in a while. I went on CoStar the other week and it was so accurate and I was so mad about it. And then someone in one of my classes was doing a lesson demo for a lesson in Spanish on the difference between ser and estar. And she had us look at horoscopes because that is a good illustration of those two different verbs to be. I'm not going to get into Spanish grammar. And she put a little horoscope for each thing. And I read the Cancer one and that one was also too accurate. And I was mad about it. I am a Cancer. So I am a water sign. You're right. So maybe I'm a water bender, but I think I'm a fire bender. When I was younger, I was a water bender. Well, does that mean I'm a water bender? I identify with that one. Maybe I am a water. Wait a minute. I'm like having an existential crisis. Oh, okay. So you're also a Cancer, but you think you're an Airbender. All right, great. Azula versus Kuvira. Who do you think wins? I want to see that fight. I don't know. And let's say Azula in her right mind, like Azula at her peak. I'm only gonna say Kuvira because she's older, and I think they're both like masters. But Kuvira has more years on Azula. Yeah, but I would love to see that fight. Aang versus Zahir, only airbending. Here's the only reason why I think Zahir would win. I don't think he's a better airbender. I don't think he's a better fighter necessarily. But he would use aggressive airbending, which is an oxymoron. And Aang would use more defensive airbending. Well, maybe I think Zahir might win. I'll tell you my least favorite. I don't know. But I'll tell you my least favorite episode. It's the one that we just watched last week. It's the filler episode, the recap episode in season 4. I hate it so much. And that's what's great about Ember Island Players. It's technically a recap episode, but they don't make it seem like it's a recap episode. Am I the only person who doesn't hate Mako? Everyone I meet hates Mako. Me and my friends kind of hate Mako. Like, we don't like hate him, but we're always just like, Mako sucks. Ozai versus Amon. Amon. Bloodbend the heck out of him. Alright, folks, I'm going to end. Thank you all for coming as per usual. Happy to see you. I was like, that's me vocalizing a keyboard smash.